Carl Jung said that life often takes away our masks and makes us see things clearly, even when that truth feels very hard to face. This is especially true for caring people who have been hurt by selfish or controlling people. Their path is not just about staying alive, it's about changing. It's about slowly breaking free from false beliefs, letting go of the masks they once wore, and finally finding a kind of inner strength that no one can control or take away. It begins quietly, almost innocently, in that strange radiance that sensitive souls carry without even realizing it. From childhood, there is a certain light in the empath's eyes, a presence that calms others, a tenderness that others lean on. They become the natural comforter, the silent healer, the one who feels another's wound as if it were their own. But this light is also a signal, a beacon not only to those in genuine need, but also to those who hunger for energy, for control, for the warmth they cannot generate within themselves. This is the paradox Jung observed. The very gift of empathy that makes life meaningful becomes the very vulnerability that predators exploit. And so begins the first stage, where love is confused with need and care is mistaken for connection. The empath enters relationships believing that love is about pouring out, about being the balm to another's brokenness. Yet, slowly, imperceptibly, the balance shifts. What seemed like intimacy becomes extraction. The narcissist has studied them carefully, like a scientist with an experiment, mapping every response, every trigger, every hidden fear. They learn when to withhold, when to reward, when to strike, until the empath begins to live in a subtle trance of anticipation, always reaching, always adjusting, always trying to be enough. The tragedy is that this stage feels like love because it mimics intimacy, but it is not love, it is reconnaissance. And then comes the descent. The second stage is the one that shatters most empaths, the point where their very gift becomes their greatest weapon turned against them. For what does it mean to feel so deeply? It means that when rage erupts, they absorb it as if it were their fault. When silence descends, they interpret it as their failure. When betrayal occurs, they ask what they did wrong to deserve it. The narcissist does not merely wound them. They turn the empath into the carrier of their own darkness. Shame, insecurity, fear, all of it is projected outward, flung like arrows into the tender heart of the one who only wanted to love. Jung described this as the process of shadow projection, the refusal of the narcissist to face their own abyss. But for the empath, the experience is more visceral. It feels like a slow crucifixion of the self, a dismantling of worth, piece by piece. Compassion is twisted into weakness, boundaries into selfishness, truth into drama. And because the empath has been trained to feel responsible for others' emotions, they accept the burden. They live in what might be called hypervigilant empathy, scanning constantly, adjusting endlessly, carrying the weight of emotions that were never theirs to begin with. This stage is where many break, where the light begins to flicker. Yet even breaking has a purpose. Jung wrote that no tree grows to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Stage 3 is hell. It is the moment when all the scaffolding collapses, the illusions, the excuses, the narratives that kept the empath bound. What once felt infinite, the ability to forgive, to understand, to endure, reaches its limit. The body falters, the mind shatters, the spirit bends under the weight of truth, anxiety, despair, illness, depression. This is the dark night of the soul. And yet, within this suffocating collapse lies the strange seed of rebirth. For what happens when the empath finally stops running from themselves? When the distraction of constantly fixing others falls silent? When the attempt to keep love alive at any cost finally crumbles? They are left with the only thing that has ever mattered, themselves. It is here that the haunting questions arise. Why did I allow this? Why did I stay? What wound within me mistook abuse for love? These are the questions of individuation, the terrible but necessary confrontation with one's own shadow, the people-pleasing, the avoidance of conflict, the addiction to being needed. These are not just habits, they are defenses built in childhood, strategies of survival that have now become chains. To face them is agony, but to deny them is death. And so, in this dark night, the empath learns a devastating truth. Empathy was never the problem. What was missing were boundaries, What was absent was discernment. The narcissist became the teacher of the very lesson the empath had refused to learn, that love without selfhood is not love at all, but self-erasure. And then, almost imperceptibly, something shifts. Out of the ashes rises a different kind of empathy, one forged in fire and tempered by suffering. Stage 4 is not simply healing, it is transformation. The empath is no longer the same. They see the pain in others, yes, but they no longer take it into themselves. They recognize manipulation, yes, but they are no longer ensnared by it. They feel deeply, but now with choice rather than compulsion. Compassion becomes paired with discernment, love with boundaries, openness with sovereignty. This is the stage that terrifies narcissists, for their power depended not on strength, but on the empath's unguarded giving. Once the empath learns to guard the flame rather than hand it over, the vampire dynamic collapses. They are no longer prey, they are sovereign. Jung described this as individuation, the process of becoming whole, of living not in reactive patterns but from an inner center. The empath now becomes what might be called empathically sovereign. They give, but only from fullness. They help, but never at the cost of self. They love, but never by sacrificing their own essence. And with this shift comes a new vision. The empath begins to see not only the narcissist's tactics, but also their pain. They recognize the emptiness behind the charm, the wounded child behind the cruelty, the hollowness behind the mask. But the difference is that they no longer feel compelled to fix it. They can witness without absorbing, acknowledge without rescuing. This is maturity, the ability to love without losing oneself. From this place, new relationships are born. Ones built not on the desperation to be needed, but on the joy of being met. Partners who respect boundaries, who cherish depth without exploiting it, who bring their own fullness rather than feeding on another's light. The empath has not become colder, they have become clearer. They have not lost their gift. They have learned how to wield it. And perhaps the most profound realization is this: the entire journey was never random. It was a distorted mirror of individuation. The narcissist sought wholeness by consuming others, the empath by healing others. Both were avoiding the truth that wholeness cannot be outsourced. It can only be found within. When the empath breaks this contract, when they turn inward rather than outward, when they claim their sovereignty rather than bleed it away, they step into the very purpose for which their sensitivity was given. Jung believed that empaths are not accidents of nature. They are evolutionary catalysts. Their depth of feeling, when tempered with wisdom, becomes not only personal healing, but collective transformation. They model a new way of being, showing that sensitivity can coexist with strength, that compassion can stand firm within boundaries, that love does not require self-betrayal. Every healed empath becomes a ripple in the larger sea, making it harder for predators to find easy prey, and easier for other empaths to find their way home. If you have walked this path, then you know. The stages were not punishment, but preparation. The light trap taught you the nature of your magnetism. The soul extraction taught you the necessity of boundaries. The dark night revealed your strength. And the rebirth gave you sovereignty. You are not broken, not too sensitive, not fatally flawed. You are a consciousness in evolution, learning to protect and channel your greatest gift. This is what it means to awaken, to look within rather than without, to discover that the very darkness you endured has carved out the space for light that is entirely your own. And in claiming it, you not only free yourself, you become a beacon for others who are still lost in the cycle. You become, as Jung would say, the wounded healer, transforming pain into wisdom and wisdom into a gift for the world. And so, the empath emerges, not as a fragile remnant of what they once were, but as something entirely new, refined, sharpened, sovereign. The same light that once made them prey now becomes their shield, their compass, their sacred gift. They no longer wander through relationships hoping to be chosen, for they have chosen themselves. They no longer confuse being needed with being loved, for they understand that love without freedom is only bondage. What once felt like destruction has revealed itself as initiation, the kind of initiation Jung described as necessary for individuation. The narcissist no longer terrifies them, no longer defines them, no longer consumes them. For the empath has looked into the abyss, seen both the darkness of others and the shadow within themselves. and returned with eyes that see differently. Their empathy now moves with intention, with boundaries, with strength. They give because they choose, not because they are compelled. They love from fullness, not from hunger. And in this, they become unbreakable. This is the secret gift hidden in the torment. That what was meant to destroy you became the very fire that awakened you. You are not a victim of your empathy. You are its guardian.